This meeting is being recorded and is being live streamed via the Council's website. There is no test of the fire alarm today. If the event that the fire alarm does sound off, it means there's probably a real fire and we need to evacuate. So can please everybody head towards the doors at the back and congregate in the car park out the front of the building where we can take account of everybody and make sure we're all there. Members should be mindful that the high-performance loop system is sensitive to any type of noise in the chamber. Ambient sound from the chamber immediately prior to the meeting and during open sessions may be picked up by the loop, and therefore councillors should conduct private conversations outside the chamber. The loop will be muted at the close of the meeting. When invited to speak, you should press the button on your microphone unit to make it live. Please speak directly into the microphone and press the button again to switch it off once you have finished. Item number 1 then, Andrew, apologies for absence.
We have no apologies for members today. We've also received, just noted, Andrew Cookham, Chief Executive's apologies for this meeting today. Thank you, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you very much. Item number 2 is declaration of members' interests. Are there any added interests that anybody would like to discuss? No. Item number 3 then, announcements by the leader or the executive officers. Natalie.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. I just wanted to congratulate Heather Sandy on her inclusion in the New Year's Honours List and her award of a CBE. As we can see, she's already got it on her name plaque, which is fantastic, for her incredible hard work and dedication to the education system and services for children. So, and I'm sure everyone else will join me in congratulating her. Thank you.
I think a round of applause is fine. Yes, just call her Commander from now on. She doesn't like that very much. I've done it a couple of times. Item number 4 then is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 2nd of December 2025. Are there any comments? No. Can I have a show of hands then to agree on that? That is unanimous and carried. Thank you. Okay, let me just get to the point in my thing here. Oh, it's so much easier with a piece of paper. Right. Okay, item number 5 then is the council budget for 26-27. Where's Michelle? Oh, there you are. Michelle.
Thank you very much. So just a brief outline of the paper that's in your reports. This is the budget proposals for 26-27 for consultation. So the purpose of this paper is to provide an initial draft of a budget proposal for consultation, which will go through our scrutiny process and through budget consultation in the normal way. So the report covers an update to our medium-term financial plan based on the forecast costs and funding over the reporting period. It includes proposed changes to our revenue budget for 26-27. It includes proposed changes to the council tax charge and proposed changes to the capital programme, and includes our treasury management strategy, which sets the parameters for managing our cash and long-term borrowing. Just for context, we started the budget setting process knowing that our cost pressures were going to be outstripping our funding for the upcoming year. So we had begun the process earlier in the summer to identify savings and efficiencies early in the year, which we've reported through our exec reporting in quarters 1 and 2 to report progress on that. To say the process has been particularly challenging this year would be a bit of an understatement, with the government implementing its fair funding review and still consulting on that. And whilst this has been positive news for LCC, our settlement was received quite late in the process, and we will not receive our final settlement figures from government until February. That being said, the fair funding review that's been set through our core spending power looked to assess the needs of the authority adjusted it by the cost of delivering services locally and our ability to collect that income locally as well. The government assumed the maximising of council tax during that calculation, and our core spending power over the 3-year period assumes this. As part of this, the government have also rolled into core funding a large number of specific grants, which will have previously been reported in our service budget lines, rather than core funding. So for this amounted to £81 million, which is described as funding simplification in our papers, which I appreciate is a bit confusing, but it's not new money to us. It's money we were already receiving, but was reported in our service budgets as opposed to in our funding lines. So that increase is not new money. That's money we was already receiving. The net benefit to LCC in year 1, 26/7 is 36 million, and with this transition's been applied, so we are getting a third of the fair funding outcome in year 1, 2/3 in year 2, 3/3 in year 3, which, if it had all been applied in year 1, would have created an extra £50 million for the council, which confirms our assessment that we've not been adequately funded for the previous period before that. In terms of our revenue budget, the details are on table A3 in terms of quite detailed against our service lines. Cost pressures in the period that we're looking for 26/7 amounted to 82.6 million, and savings and additional income have been identified as 35 million, increasing to 65 million over the medium-term plan. The pressures, as I've said, clearly outstrip the additional funding that we're receiving. So those savings have been necessary, and we continue to work on those efficiency savings. The pressures, particularly around adults and children's social care, include demand pressures and inflationary and cost price pressures as well. In terms of council tax, so the council tax, as I say, assumed by government is that we will maximise the referendum limit, which is up to 5%, usually described as 4.99%, which is a 2% adults precept and a 3% general precept. So our funding, our papers reflect that. However, that is a local decision, and that is part of the decision that was made by council in February. And table 1 in page 13 sets out the different scenarios that can be considered as part of that consultation and decision making, and the implication of all of those different scenarios are on there in terms of we're presenting a balanced budget as it stands with a full maximisation of council tax, so 4.99%. The table there gives you the bandy equivalent for that, but also gives you the scenarios for slightly less council tax increases and the deficit position that creates for the budget for 26/7. There's details of the capital programme changes from section 3 in the paper. It highlights the additions that we are needing to make to the programme to fully budget for the legacy projects in the programme. It also identifies new additions to the programme that we're having to make to fulfil our ongoing service requirements, and highlights projects that are being removed that weren't in flight. And the paper also then includes our treasury management strategy, which is how we manage our cash over the short term and how we manage our long-term borrowing. So I don't think there's anything else I was going to say by way of introduction, but quite happy to take questions.
Michelle, thank you. You've mentioned that it's been a more challenging budget than for many years. And normally I would thank you for the efforts and the hard work that you have put into this report, and I do that. Unusually, the executive have been involved in that process as well, so I'd like to thank everybody. And it genuinely hasn't been easy. There have been, times where we are pulling our hair out trying to get to a point where we are at now, and I think it is a good sign that we have sat together and worked together and got to this point. I now open it up to offer questions from the executive. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Michelle, I know you've already touched on it, but previous to Christmas, there were talks of early Christmas presents and this picture being painted of rainbows and sunshine and that we had all this spare money to spend and that we'd done really well. However, that's not really the picture, is it? So I just wondered if, for the purposes of the meeting, you could just clarify that position, because the extra money that we are supposedly have received is obviously taken by the deficit that we already had. So I just wondered if you could just give us a bit more clarification surrounding that situation, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so as included in the report, we obviously set our medium-term plan when we set our budget for the current financial year, and we were forecasting at that point a deficit position for 26/7 of 25 million. We did start work early because we knew that the pressures were going to outstrip any additional funding through government funding or through council tax. So we did start to do a very thorough budget process to look at efficiencies and savings. The additional funding that's come in from government is netting off at 36 million this year. Council tax will be on top of that, but obviously that's a local decision. And what that means is that the pressures, that the gap isn't as big as we thought it was going to be, but we're still having to make efficiencies and savings to manage the pressures that we've got. To set a balanced budget, we'll still have to deliver those efficiencies and savings. And as I say, whatever the decision is, the outcome, the council tax obviously has an impact on whether we have to go further with that as well. So I think whilst it's really good news for LCC, it's just a recognition that the funding wasn't in line with the need and demand previously. And certainly not meeting the pressures that we've got of 85 million.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Leader. It's not really a question, it's just to say that I'm so pleased to see page 14212, the additional investment in drainage. You know, you're 16% more likely to be flooded than burgled, and I think this will give the residents a little bit more confidence that we take flooding very, very seriously. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Any other questions? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michelle, at 2.12 on page 14, it alludes to product teams. For those online who aren't aware of what a product team is, could you just please provide a brief outline as to what a product team is and its purpose? Thank you.
I will do my best. So in June, the executive made a decision to award a new contract to a digital partner, and as part of that, there was highlighted that investment in our IT and IT methods would deliver efficiencies and savings, and the product teams are the specific teams that look at digital solutions to enable us to work more efficiently and be more tech-enabled in the way we work. There is a programme being built up of what that product team will be working on, and I know the corporate leadership team are looking at how we prioritise those to effectively work more efficiently, deliver more savings that will be on top of what we've already built into the medium-term plan, and deliver better outcomes and services ultimately.
Thank you. Any more? Councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Chairman. Michelle, thank you very much for the report. Obviously, a lot of work has gone into it. I know you said that you've obviously had to put an increase, a presumed increase in, so you're able to provide actual figures, and the presumed rise is 4.99. But you said that isn't actual, so no decision's been made on that. Could you just clarify, because obviously we've seen a lot of publications that we've already made that decision. Can we just have some clarity that isn't the case, please?
Yeah, so when the government publishes its core spending power, the government assume a maximisation of council tax income. And they will make that assumption regardless of what decisions are made. The decision is absolutely a local decision, and that is the decision that's made by full council on the 20th of February. We have to publish papers for consultation, and we have to publish what proposals could be made around council tax increases and then the impact on local residents for that, which is what's in the paper. So we've worked through what the implications would be of a maximum council tax increase, but also included in there other scenarios and tried to highlight what the implications are of different decisions around council tax. But absolutely, this is a paper that's for consultation and not a final decision at all.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you for that. It's just just good to clarify, just so we know where we are. So no decision has been made, and anybody that reports anything that it has been is just fictitious.
Yeah, I think following consultation, the executive are asked to make a final proposal back to council, and that will be at its meeting in February. Hopefully, through consultation, that decision will have been solidified, but obviously needs to be ratified by full council.
Councillor Clegg.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a specific question, Michelle, which I may I'll ask you, but you may wish to direct it to the person sat behind me. It's about ICB contributions on page 57 of Appendix B and joint funding stability. The budget assumes a 4.4% increase in ICB minimum contributions. Could officers confirm whether this has been formally agreed yet and what contingency exists should contributions fall short of this? Thank you.
So I'll refer to Martin around the ICB contributions. We do have a general contingency within our corporate budgets to allow for any unexpected events during the financial year.
So if I can pick up the ICB contribution. So this essentially refers to the ICB contribution to the Better Care Fund. It is part of national guidance from the Department of Health and Social Care regarding the Better Care Fund that ICBs are required to increase their contribution to the BCF by the rate of increase that they have received for their overall budget, which is 4.4%. And therefore it is a condition of the ICB receiving its funding from DHSC that it must make the full contribution. So therefore, although we haven't had formal confirmation from the ICB that they are going to do that, given that it is a condition of their funding arrangement from the department for the year, the level of risk is considered therefore to be negligible. I should note, however, that the Better Care Fund is due to be completely redesigned nationally for the 27-28 financial year, and we are currently awaiting guidance about what the contributions will be and what its scope will be. However, we have been indicated that it will be a very significant redesign, which will include a new name yet to be determined, but we will deal with that when it comes. But that will be an issue for 27-8. For 26-7, although, as I say, we haven't had the firm confirmation from the ICB, given that it is a condition of their funding, I don't think there's any risk associated.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michelle, at 2.13 on page 14, it alludes to 62.7 million savings over the medium-term financial plan period. Obviously, we were voted in on a ticket where we would look to ensure best value for money, look at reducing the costs of sale, and also ensuring efficiencies where practicable. Can you please confirm that the 62.7 mil is the totality for the period, or are we looking to do more? Thank you.
So I think it's safe to say the 62 million is part of our the work that's been going on over the summer, and the savings that we've identified through that process. There is, we mentioned the product teams, there's still quite a lot of work to do about identifying savings that can be made from the work that the IT and digital solutions are delivering. And as Chief Finance Officer, I'm keen not to build things into the plan until we've got a firm delivery plan for making sure those savings are delivered. So, so absolutely there is more efficiencies to be made in terms of the digital solutions. That there are savings in there that are around things like the senior management restructure, and that those efficiencies through staff reviews and things like that. But absolutely still more to do around, particularly around the digital solutions and looking at the efficiencies of contracts and things like that.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
I just wanted to say on that point, actually, the fact that we found 62 million savings, just like to say thanks to all the heads of department. I know they've been pushed, and I know you, Leader, pushed them and then pushed them a little bit more. I just wanted to put on record thanks to the heads of department for all the help on that.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, any more questions from anybody before I summarise? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Our Lincolnshire heritage is incredibly important to us, as you are well aware. And at the moment, you know, I mean, it will take time, but all of it is important to us, and we will do what we can to protect it across the county. Currently, the castle needs to take priority due to years of neglect from the previous administration. So, as the Executive Councillor for Culture, I'm incredibly pleased to point out the £1.9 million worth of investment into the castle walls. But Michelle, it's not limited to that, is it? We are planning a maintenance programme moving forward. So I was just wondering if, for the purposes of the meeting, if you can just give a bit more information surrounding that, please.
Yeah, so I think there's a specific reference in the report to the castle maintenance. So as you've said, the changes to the capital programme is to add the phase one, £1.9 million worth of works to the castle walls into next year's programme. There is an expectation that there was a phase two works that were required following on from that. The team are looking at the best way to deliver that, and we've added £5 million into the base for 27A from the revenue budget side, which will stay in the base until we can review it and determine that we've got to a kind of level state of revenue maintenance that's needed for the castle walls.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Just to add to that, and just to confirm that obviously any work that we do around additional investment and additional requirements would obviously be subject to the usual decision making and would obviously go through scrutiny and then formal decision making.
Thank you, Debbie. Any more questions? Okay, then I'll just pick up on two things. The very quickly to summarise, the extra funding that we've been given is absolutely outstripped by the extra cost pressures that we're under. Is that right? Just not. And finally, have you been given any indication whatsoever of the council tax figure that we're going to put forward?
So the council tax decision is a local decision. I think what we're currently being consulted on by the government is the settlement they've provided and whether we've got any feedback around the settlement that they've provided. And they do take consultation. They provide us with a methodology. They then provide us with the funding and ask for feedback on that funding. And we are being consulted on that at the moment. I think the challenge that we've got is they've set out their principles for fair funding and then they've pared it back massively. So in the report we set out that there's been a top slice of the total funding available for local authorities that's gone to the Mets and the recovery grant receivers basically for the current year. I don't think there'll be any council that's not in that cohort that won't feed back. There's not a principle for doing that, so why do you not just add that money into the pot? And that would create an extra 11 million for us as a local authority. We will know the outcome of that when we get this final settlement, probably early February. I'm not overly hopeful that they'll change their methodology at this point, but it is open for consultation. But it's usually the final settlement is a bit of tweaking around the edges, and they have said that there's some extra money that they should be adding into that for the domestic abuse grant specifically. So there will be some changes, but I would be very surprised if it's a massive change from what they've already provided us for just before Christmas.
Just add to that as well. The other bit that I think we're waiting for further announcements on in relation to the sort of February date is in relation to special educational needs and particularly the statutory override. There was lots of comments made in the autumn statement, but obviously a lack of clarity about exactly what will happen with the statutory override.
Thank you, and once again, thank you for the effort and the work that you and your team have put together. It's a phenomenal thing to be part of and to watch evolve and turn up and to be what it is. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, thank you very much. We are now going to vote. If we can skip to page 10 of the agenda pack, have a quick look at the recommendations. And can I have a vote by the executive if you're happy with those recommendations? All those in favour? That's unanimous again. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 6 then is the North Highcombe Relief Road proceed to construction. Over to Sam Edwards, Head of Highways Infrastructure, to introduce the report.
Thank you, and good morning all. So I brought many of these these key decision reports to the executive for this scheme, but I'm happy to say this is the last one. So this is effectively the letting of the works contract to Balfour Beatty, with also a delegation that's subject to the final business case that we're awaiting. So what I thought I'd do is I'll update on some of the legal orders and the milestones that we've gone through over the last few months, and then get into a little bit about the construction. So at the last executive in August, we talked about the waiting for the legal orders to be confirmed, and I'm happy to say those were confirmed in October. So that allows us to gain access to the land, so that the orders have already been processed, and they're in that process of gaining access, which will come into about end of March, April time. In addition, we requested permission to submit the final business case, and I'm happy to say that that was submitted in September. And then in mid-November, we had a meeting with the DFT, with the investment committee, where they effectively questioned for quite some time the business case that we'd submitted. And happy to say that on the back of that, the directors at the DFT all unanimously were recommending the approval of the final business case. So that now sits with central government and with the Secretary of State for the decision. So effectively, if the recommendation in this report today is approved, the only hurdle now is waiting for the FBC for that to be approved, and then we can actually proceed to construction. So on the construction front, we have done a load of advance works. So for those that notice around South Hycombe, we've been doing an oil pipeline diversion, and happy to say that that will be complete by the end of Jan. It's been pressure tested, it's in motion, and it's just finalising and backfilling now. So that's a massive hurdle to get out of the way. The second part is the archaeology. For those around when we built the Lincoln Eastern bypass, it was quite a process to go through. Happy in a way to say that there was far less found as we expected. And of the 5 areas that we were excavating, 4 are complete, and the 5th has been stripped, and they're just finalising the area. So that should be finished by early Feb, and that's all the archaeology out of the way and finished. In addition, what I've included in the paper, and I don't propose to go through all the construction elements, but there's a lot about what we intend to do as part of it, or brief summary of it, and also go into some of the traffic management proposals as well. And then in February, March time, before we get into the bird nesting season, we're looking to do all the vegetation clearance around the area, so that's out of the way, so we can get on in April time with the earthworks season. So the main works subject to this approval and the final business case, we're looking to issue the notice to proceed in February, or early Feb, and start works in March 26th. That will take us to about May 29. And finally, I just want to say that the costs from what I reported in August remains unchanged. It's exactly the same value. The benefit to cost ratio remains the same as been and was part of the final business case. And that effectively subject to the approval, we will start. So I'm going to pause there and ask whether there's any queries.
Thank you, Sam. We'll come to questions in a minute. We now have Councillor Tom Dyer, Councillor for Waddington and Hycombe East, here to speak as the local member in respect of the decision. He has a maximum of 5 minutes to address the executive.
Thank you very much, Leader. Happy New Year to the executive and all officers present today. It's no secret that the North Hycombe Relief Road has been in discussion, I would say for years, but decades. And it's great to see this scheme finally coming before you as an executive this morning. Residents in Waddington, Hycombe, Bracebridge Heath and the wider Lincoln area face daily traffic issues and rat running. And it isn't just congestion and longer journeys. We've also got to keep in mind the air quality on village roads, pedestrian safety risks and constant noise from traffic. Take Manor Lane, Station Road and Stone Lane in Waddington, or Chapel Lane and Meadow Lane in Hycombe, all regularly clogged with rat running. And Manor Lane in particular for those of you that have travelled on it, will know that it is far too narrow to manage the current traffic levels safely. So this also makes it very difficult for residents to access Waddington Village on foot. Since being elected in 2021, I've listened to thousands of residents in Waddington and Highcombe East. And while the Relief Road, and it's no secret, it isn't universally supported by residents, some strongly oppose it. But many residents are prepared to accept the local disruption for an infrastructure project that will mean easing congestion that blights our communities in the south of Lincoln. The report before the executive today isn't perfect. It won't please everybody, but it's the best compromise to tackle our traffic problems while delivering a viable infrastructure project. As you all know, and as Sam's included within the report, this scheme critically, it's not just an 8-kilometre carriageway, it's a dual carriageway. Residents have been crying out for a dual carriageway, and I'm pleased that it continues to be a dual carriageway. The cost is estimated to be £200 million, and as you all know, roughly 200 million, £110 million of that is coming directly from government. And Sam, you've alluded to the benefit to cost ratio for this scheme, and I understand compared to other schemes, that's a very good benefit to cost ratio. So it's fantastic that it continues to hold such a good benefit to cost ratio. Leader, I must stress that residents in Waddington and Highcombe East must be kept fully informed about progress and disruption during the construction of this road, should you approve the report today. As local member, I insist wherever possible of minimum disruption, not just on hotspots like Station Road, but also at the Viking Way. Those of you that are aware, the road will cut the Viking Way in two. So residents are particularly keen that disruption is kept to a minimum. The council must ensure that this is done wherever possible. Beyond cutting rat running and easing congestion, this is an opportunity for genuine placemaking. Where we divert traffic away, such as from Manor Lane, as I've referenced earlier, we must also invest in community infrastructure, like footpaths, and we need to maximise the benefits for local residents that have been plagued with rat running for decades. And additionally, Leader, as you will see included within the hundreds of documents attached to the planning application, the bypass won't just reduce congestion in my area, it will also reduce congestion on Lincoln Western Bypass, thus having an even wider benefit to the greater Lincoln economy. Now, I know I could go on for hours talking about this road, however, I'm conscious I only have a minute and a half left. The key takeaways I'd like the executive to have from my contribution today: keep communities informed, minimise disruption, and crucially, deliver this scheme on time and on budget. That is absolutely essential. Now, however, Leader, before I conclude, I just want to publicly commend Sam and his team. For almost half a decade, since 2021, Sam has guided me through what must be, I believe, Sam, I haven't counted, but it must be hundreds of discussions, emails, phone calls about this scheme. And I genuinely appreciate your honesty, expertise, and even at times, direct communication towards me, Sam. It's been invaluable for me to do my role in advocating on behalf of my community. So I just want to thank you for everything you've done for me over the last 5 years. But of course, you're not rid of me yet, and I'm going to continue to hassle you and this council to make sure that this scheme is delivered and it minimises disruption to the communities that I represent. I won't say anything more nice about Sam and his team, but I think it's important that members, and particularly the executive, note the contribution from officers. It's been critical for us getting here, and politicians across all parties, Conservative, Labour and now Reform, we'll all try and claim credit in one form or another at the ribbon cutting once it's open. But actually, the truth is, if it wasn't for the officers and the engineers working on this scheme, we wouldn't be here today and we wouldn't have this infrastructure project. So, executive, please approve this report today. Let's get spades in the ground and finish the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer, and I will take on board your request for residents to be informed as and when it progresses. It's absolutely correct that that's what it should be. Moving on to Councillor Bailey Robinson, who is the Vice Chair of Highways and Transport Scrutiny Committee, to present any comments from that committee. Thank you.
Thank you. On the 8th December 2025, the Highways and Transport Scrutiny Committee considered a report pertinent to the North Highcombe Relief Road proceed to construction and agreed to support the recommendations made as these were set out in the report. The committee welcomed the report, and some members stated that any improvement to transport infrastructure in the Lincoln area would be positively received by residents. Members further expressed support for the design and build approach, noting that it provided clear accountability and control over costs. Key points raised during the debate and responses provided by officers are as follows. Regarding scheme cost and contractual approach, details were requested on costs and whether contractual arrangements created a fixed financial commitment or an unrestricted liability. Officers explained that the contract followed a new engineering contract, or NEC4. NEC4 option C, target cost with activity schedule and a shared pain-gain mechanism rather than a fixed price model. They outlined that this approach provided both flexibility and risk management, incentivizing efficiency while ensuring accountability. Officers highlighted that the design and build procurement method reduced the authority's exposure to design construction risks, with the contractor assuming responsibility for coordination between design and construction. They further emphasised that although the contract was not fixed price, it did not constitute an unrestricted financial commitment. The committee acknowledged that this approach represented a safeguard in terms of cost management. Officers further elaborated on the mechanism of target cost sharing, explaining how gains and losses are apportioned and capped to protect the authority from excessive cost overruns. Finally, it was reiterated that clear risk mitigation measures, liabilities and cost control mechanisms had been incorporated to ensure robust management of expenditure throughout the delivery. Just regarding procurement and scheme delivery, the committee expressed support for the design and build approach, noting that it provided clear accountability and control over costs. Officers reinforced that this procurement method was appropriate for schemes of this scale, providing great certainty over cost outcomes compared to traditional design build methods. They emphasised that the approach aligned incentives between the authority and the contractor by consolidating responsibility within a single entity, allowing adjustments within a structured target cost framework while limiting financial exposure. So, economic impact, funding and expected cost adjustments. Members queried the expected economic benefits of the scheme following completion, noting references in the business case to high economic value, asked how the scheme would influence growth in the surrounding area, and requested for clarification over the use of developer contributions. Officers clarified that the benefit cost ratio was measures over a 60-year period, with an estimated £800 million in economic benefits derived from growth, congestion reduction, accident reduction and carbon savings, though not as direct cash revenue. They advised that the scheme's benefit cost ratio was in the region of 3.5 to 4.0, depending on the specific metrics applied. A member referred to the additional £14 million identified within the latest cost position and asked what specific changes had driven this increase. Officers explained that the scheme was £207 million, with a £14 million increase reflecting adjustments, including ecological mitigation, changes to flood and environment requirements, and law or policy updates. Officers also referenced cost pressures arising from changes in legislation and employer contributions, such as national insurance adjustments at the relevant point in the programme. They confirmed that the full list of adjustments was contained in the earlier report. Finally, regarding the £10 million developer contributions, which represented an estimate of Section 106 contributions with which the County Council would forward fund, officers emphasised that these were estimates subject to housing market factors and inflation, but stressed that the scheme was not reliant on timing or exact value of these contributions. Safeguards were in place to ensure that pre-funding by the County Council would not impact other services, with budgetary management processes mitigating any potential shortfall. Officers confirmed that any future Section 106 contributions, when received, would represent additional income. These funds could be used either to offset borrowing undertaken for the scheme or to support other council priorities, subject to decisions taken in future budget cycles. So the construction, sequencing, concurrent works and traffic management. Concerns were raised about the potential for concurrent construction works to exacerbate congestion. Officers explained that concurrent delivery across multiple sites was more efficient, allowing for staged earthworks and drainage activities to reduce repeated disruption. They noted that significant works would be undertaken offline where possible and that traffic management plans, including nighttime lane closures, were being coordinated to minimise impact. Members were encouraged to attend upcoming contractor engagement events where detailed traffic management plans will be available for review. Officers compared this approach to previous large-scale projects, noting that the principle of concurrent works had proven effective in mitigating disruption. So programme risks and impact on contract pricing. A member queried the implications of delays to stage 2 of the project on contract pricing. Officers indicated that any postponement could affect the target cost, particularly due to seasonal constraints on earthworks and inflation risk, thereby increasing risks and potentially affecting costs and delivery certainty. They stressed the importance of commencing the project in line with the planned scheme to maintain cost certainty, highlighting that only key decisions and final business case approval were pending before work could start. Finally, ecological mitigation measures. A member queried the status of the structural development designed to act as a linear feature to facilitate wildlife crossing the highway and sought clarification on the rationale for its inclusion, noting historical considerations regarding bat navigation. Officers responded that engagement had been undertaken with Natural England and national experts on ecological mitigation. They emphasised that no final decision had been made regarding the construction of the feature and that proceeding with the contractor order did not preclude amendments or removal of the feature later in the process. Expert advice has strongly indicated that the proposed mitigation was appropriate for the impacts of the scheme. That concludes our comments from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Right, I now move on to, Robinson. I now move on to inviting the executive to ask any questions. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the costings and the what that looks like, I note that the comments coming back from the Scrutiny Committee, which were very thorough, thank you for that, Councillor Robinson. It's clarified that there is no fixed price, but then there is also no financial unrestricted commitment. So I think what I'm asking for is some clarification and also probably the prevention of an opportunity with Councillor Dyer mentioning keeping it on budget. Can you confirm to the executive what keeping it on budget actually means and looks like?
Yeah, no problem. So there's two elements to look at this. The first is that a lot of the big changes come from the need from design changes, and this is where we've had issues in the past when there's been a need when the county council is stuck between the designer and the contractor. So we approached this from first principles of the scheme very differently. So we went down this design and build route. So instead, we're not procuring the designer, we procure the contractor, they procure the designer. If there are issues with the design, that is their issues to resolve, not our issues. So we are not putting ourselves in that sort of middle position. Now, it's from this perspective to this date is proving really fruitful. You know, we will see how as things progress. But this process or this procurement option for schemes of this scale is generally what the industry is moving towards. It's not right for smaller things because you want control, but for these types of things, it's far better. As far as the contractual cost control, so the way the mechanism works is that you pay actual costs. So you pay the contractor what they've incurred. However, you also work at something called a target cost. And effectively, the difference between the two, so if, for example, the theoretical cost, which is the target cost, is greater than what you've actually paid, you split that difference between you. So in theory, we would, if it went £5 million over budget, the county council will be hit for £2.5 million, but the contractor will not get paid £2.5 million of their cost. Equally, the other way around, if they find, say, £5 million of savings, we get £2.5 million worth of works for free, effectively, and they save on that element as well. However, the critical thing here is there is a cap on that, which is where the unrestricted. That doesn't go on forever. You know, let's say £100 million worth of increases cost. We're actually capped at that 50-50 split up to 10%. Everything beyond that is completely the contractor's paying. Equally, inversely, the other way around, if they found £100 million of savings, which they won't, £100 million of savings, we would split the difference between, but anything over 10% is completely the client's, is completely LCC's. So what this incentivises both parties to work collaboratively to reduce the cost, because both parties are either going to gain from that, or if you are in a pain situation, you're going to lessen the amount of pain. So it drives, and generally in construction, that conflict is going to equal cost for all parties. So it incentivises the parties to not get into that place. So I will never sit here, and I never have, and say this is a fixed price. There is really no such thing as a fixed price contract when you get into the details. But this is an appropriate contractual mechanism for a scheme of this scale to try and reduce and control costs as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Sam. Any other questions? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman. Sam, can you please confirm the amounts of staff that will be increased for LCC in regards to this project?
Strangely, I'm actually having that conversation yesterday and this morning about the staffing structure once we're on site. So they do operate as a virtual team, so they're for that project. So we don't create a new structure. So you'll have the contracting team, which is to manage the works, but they also manage the many I think there's about 40 or 50 different subcontractors as well. So they're managing them, and we'll also have the Ramboll, who are the designers, on site as well. But from an LCC perspective, we're looking at about 10 or 12 people, varying from project managers to supervisors to cost control, commercial managers, those like. So we're just working through those details now.
And those staffing costs, and obviously all the other remunerations that go along with it, are they factored into the LCC finances that are included within this overall build?
Yes, yeah, they're all included in the pricing that's in this paper for the life of the project.
And apologies for harping on, but in order to ensure efficiencies and we remain on track, will we have, just confirmation, we'll have a robust contract management system in place to ensure timely service, costs, etc., and efficiencies are realised?
Yes, it already exists. The NEC contract has been running for 3 years when we went into this phase. It continues. We're just moving to part 2 of that contract, so it exists now, and we will continue with that process.
Okay, but the contract management is going to be overseen by these new staff that come in, yes or no?
So, I'll try and explain. So the contract has various named parties. So there's a party called the project manager, which is the client. That's the client role. That's named as myself, and we delegate the powers out. And those go to a number of those 10 staff to manage it. That is the role within the contract. You also have the contractor that's named within it, and they have their own distinct responsibilities within how the contract's outlined. So those roles exist, they continue to exist, and we have the right experience and qualified people to operate those roles.
Okay, so apologies again, but are we asking the suppliers to mark their own homework? Or are we, as an LCC, having LCC dedicated QA/QC staff ensuring robust contract management, which then ensures good value for money and efficiency?
Simply put, yes. If that's what we're looking at, yes, that is exactly what we have. They are not marking their own work. We have audit checks, we have audit testing checks, and we're involved in all that, and we define the quality management process that's included in the contract.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for the report. I appreciate if we don't go ahead with this, we lose the DFT money, which is 110 million. How much have we already put into this project? So if we decided not to go with it, what would we stand to write off, in effect, already spent?
I haven't got the exact figure, but we're talking around 20 million. We've spent more than that, but some of that is from LCC. But it's around 20 million of the DFT money that we've drawn down to date to get to this stage. So if for example, and I don't think it's going to happen, but let's say the final business case isn't approved by the DFT or by the Secretary of State.
Just wait.
So we don't lose that money, but if we choose not to proceed, we have to pay that money back. And what's more, and Michelle may want to come in here, what's more damaging is we would have to pay that back as revenue funding, not capital, because we don't have an asset to place it against.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for that answer. Obviously, we don't want to keep adding to the historic debt, but we'd be losing 20 million if we didn't go ahead with this. A second question, Chairman, if I can do. On page, can't see it now, 1.3.2, sorry, bear with, page 133, it says in there we're factoring in Section 106 developer contributions, 10 million. I can see that LCC is going to underwrite it and then hopefully get that back from the developers. We don't control that. Obviously, that would be the City Council, presumably. What guarantees do we have that those developers will be tied into those contributions and that they will see them through instead of coming back with viability and getting out of the Section 106?
So as always, I can't, and I think you know I can't stand here and say we will definitely get that money back, that exact figure, in this way. What I can say is the contributions are outlined in the Central Lincolnshire Local Plan, so it's not just a request, it's a policy position that outlines that. The 10 million is an estimate. If, for example, all the housing was built out in the first few years, that 10 million would be less because inflation, is not reached that part. If it was later than the local plan and in 20 years, then it will probably be greater than that 10 million. So it is an estimate, and that is why the County Council, from the first decision that we went through this process, would underwrite that, because we can't base the funding based on something that we don't control the housing market. What is obviously interesting on a much wider conversation is obviously a local government review is being considered, and as a function of that, rather than the district receiving the funding, it will all become one entity, and you go into a very different space there. But the local plan in principle doesn't change, and it underpins the requirement for the Section 106 to be recouped back to the scheme.
Thank you for the answer. I'm not sure if Councillor Dyer is on his local planning committee, but he might be able to help with that in the future and keep us on target.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? No. Sam, I'd like to reiterate the thanks for all the efforts and works. These things are enormous projects and clearly take an enormous amount of work, and thank you for your dedication and support and continued support, and you find the next job to do once you finish this one. Yeah, not, of course, funded by borrowing, though. Okay, I'm going to invite, so I've done that. At the end of the debate, Councillor Matthews will invite the Executive to vote on the recommendations on page 126, recommendation 1 and 2. So all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. That is passed. Councillor Dyer, you'll be pleased to hear. Okay, then item 7 on the agenda is capital repairs and maintenance programme schools and non-schools. I'll just point out that there is a possibility that we might need to go into a closed session if we are asked questions of that kind of nature. Hopefully that won't happen today. Andrew McLean, the Interim Executive Director for Resources, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to my colleague Marie, who's going to go over the report.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, I'd like to introduce the Capital Repairs and Maintenance Programme for 2026-27. This is part of the corporate property works. It is usually an annual programme. It's made up of a number of small schemes, and all of these small schemes are designed to ensure that our buildings remain compliant and that also the fabric integrity is maintained and the buildings remain safe for users. And in parallel, it extends the usable life of those properties and maintains the assets' values. The programme is split into 2 defined schemes: corporate properties, of which there are 57 schemes, and schools, which have 67 activities within them, both of the allocation of 3.5 million. Some of the 3.5 million within the corporate properties allocation has been ring-fenced for county farms, accessibility and asbestos, and also an allocation which is used to cover urgent and emergent activities which could negatively impact on the properties and their users. The schools funding is from the schools condition allocation from the Department of Education. There is a structured approach to identifying the activities to be included within the programme. This is done by using information gathered during condition surveys conducted as part of the facilities management contract. We are seeking approval, therefore, to proceed with the 26-27 programme of works within the identified budget envelope. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. It's just, I obviously note that Vinci are doing the surveys and the routine and standard works. To use the same words as Councillor Kelly, are they sort of checking and marking their own homework, or are we overseeing that as LCC to ensure that that process is efficient?
So the condition surveys are included within the facilities management contract. That is all overseen by members of the LCC facilities management team. So when the condition surveys come in, the LCC team review them and understand the scope of the works. We do go back and challenge. We go back and challenge condition, and we also use our facilities management officers to check those condition on their building visits as well. So there is a robust system in place to review what Vinci is sharing with us.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just one more. I note that, and I think scrutiny actually picked up on this, there are 41 subcontractors currently used by Vinci, for which 23 are Lincolnshire based. I know that it mentioned in the comments that sometimes we have to go further afield for specific skills, but I wondered how regularly we look at Lincolnshire to see if those skills have emerged within the county, and what that looks like in terms of having more subcontractors coming actually from the county to keep, you know, that revenue within.
So the list of our subcontractors is continually reviewed. There are some very specialist activities that we have. So we have some systems that need to be maintained by the original installers, for example, as part of the warranties, etc. So it isn't always possible, but we do continually look. The larger scale programs that have been delivered during 25-26 have all been delivered by Lincolnshire County contractors. So I think that demonstrates that we are going out there and aiming to use Lincolnshire first, and then where not possible, we do have to go external. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Just on that point, I think it's really important that we try and get as many skilled employees used from within Lincolnshire, and perhaps it might be a piece of work not for here or now really, but looking at what skills we are short of in the county, and maybe speaking to the colleges and the universities to see if we can start looking at bringing that in at a later date so that we reduce the need to go elsewhere. My view is always try and buy or hire as locally as you possibly can. I will just like to point out that Councillor Sam French has been caught out by the weather, and he's not here today to give us a report from the Scrutiny Committee, but you can see it on page 153. Hope he manages to get out soon. So are there any more questions from the Executive on this report? No, in that case then, I'd like to look at page 146 for the recommendations and invite the Executive to vote in favour of those recommendations. All those in favour? Unanimous, and that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, item 8 then, Special Guidance Order Finance Procedure. Heather Sandy, CBE, to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. So we're bringing this report before you. Special guardianship orders are a really important way in which we support children and young people across Lincolnshire. Tara's going to take you through the report, and then we'll both be here to answer any questions. Thanks, Tara.
Good morning. Yes, so this report makes recommendations for the special guardianship procedures and financial policy. So just as an introduction, the primary legislation covering special guardianship orders is the Children Act 1989, and then there's associated regulations and statutory guidance. A special guardianship allowance is a financial support allowance that local authorities may determine is paid to someone who has a special guardianship order for the care of a child. So a special guardianship order is a private law order which appoints one or more persons as a special guardian, granting them parental responsibility to the exclusion of any other person who has parental responsibility. These orders remain in place until the child is 18 years of age, and they are a well-established form of permanence and are extensively used by the family court as an outcome of public and private law proceedings. So for us, the special guardianship order route is the main route for children to safely exit care from the local authority. And the last decade has witnessed a considerable change and uplift in the use of special guardians as a resolution to care proceedings. It's become the main and fastest growing route for children out of the care system following care proceedings and overtaking adoption. Since the inception of the regulations, guidance has been issued, and it's fair to say this has caused difficulties across the sector due to the guidance being capable of different interpretation and application. And this has led to several complaints and the intervention of the local government and social care ombudsman, which has criticised some councils that have not had a clear policy and procedure in place in how applications for the payment of a special guardianship allowance is to be assessed. So a review of the special guardianship procedure has been undertaken to ensure full legal compliance in line with both statutory and local government ombudsman findings, and the council has carefully considered the various ombudsman's rulings and has taken specialist legal advice to ensure that its revised procedure is legally robust and legislatively compliant, and the revised procedure is detailed at Appendix C. So in conclusion, the council has ensured due diligence regarding the matter in light of the findings made in other local authorities. The council continues to support the safe exit of children from care by remaining with those who they are close and connected to through special guardianship orders. The revised financial procedure has been the subject of a consultation exercise involving carers and guardians to ensure that their observations and representations have been taken into account in its formulation, and the report detailing the methodology and findings is attached at Appendix A. So the report is recommending that the executive approves the special guardianship order financial procedure as detailed in Appendix C. And this is to enable us to provide a clear and transparent information throughout the process of financial assessment, including the annual reviews of financial support. It aligns with the Children in Care and Care Leavers strategy. It provides prospective and current guardians with clear, transparent, public-facing access to the policy and procedure, and the financial policy has been reviewed and is legally compliant. And that concludes my report.
Tara, thank you very much for that very in-depth and useful report. I am actually a great fan of these. It's all about the children, really, and the best outcome is to keep those children that are in a difficult position for whatever reason as close to their family as possible and friends. So I think this is a great way of dealing with it. It also, with my less fluffy hat on, it saves us a great deal of money. So, but it works in many, many ways. So I'm very grateful for that report. I now open it up to any questions. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give a nod to the team. I know Nicola can't be here today, but this has been an incredibly tricky piece of work, and a lot of special sort of assistance has been required to get to this point. So just wanted to thank Tara and the team for all of the hard work in being able to produce this report and getting it to where it is today. So thank you.
Yes. My thoughts exactly. And I'd just like to speak about Brenda Collier, who also can't be here today, unfortunately. So she is the chairman of the Scrutiny Committee, and their notes and references are within the reports. So are there any other questions? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tara, firstly, I'd just like to thank you and your team for the excellent work that you do and the services that you deliver in protecting the children, etc. With the delivery of these services, are these services fully funded from central government, or are these costs met by the council taxpayer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So how we deal with most of the council budget is we do get grants from central government and those go in, and then obviously we allocate budgets throughout. So there isn't a specific grant for this, but there is a grant for children's services. Thank you.
Anyone else? In that case, I now invite the Executive to vote on the recommendation set out on page 173 of the agenda pack. All those in favour? Yep, unanimous again. Thank you. Item 9 then, Adult Social Care Strategy 2026 to 28. Martin Samuels.
Thank you, Leader. So the County Council Adult Social Care Service hasn't had a clear statement of its approach for a good number of years. Such a statement is vital as it sets the tone and context within which frontline officers interact with Lincolnshire residents. At the centre of the strategy, which has been developed with the active engagement of staff, partners and especially Lincolnshire people with lived experience, is the ambition that people should have the maximum independence, choice and control over their lives, as this is demonstrated to reduce their need for care and hence reduce the demand for local authority funded services. And this is expressed through the target operating model, which is the centrepiece of the document. Following the very helpful comments that were made by the Executive when this came previously on the 3rd of November, the document has been made much shorter. I hope it's consequently more clear and it's intended to be more accessible. In addition, the document has been shared with colleagues in the NHS from the Integrated Care Board cluster. They have made clear their support for the approach set out in the strategy and haven't made any suggestions in terms of the text itself. In relation to the text, I should note that the intention is to produce a professionally designed version of the document presenting the text that's in front of you in a manner more accessible to an external audience. In that process, we've identified some typos, which we will pick up, and that also does provide the opportunity, if there are any adjustments to the text that members of the Executive would like to see incorporated, we can still do that in the final printed version. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. We now hear from Councillor Jimmy Brooks, Chairman of the Adult Care and Public Health Scrutiny Committee, who will present that committee's comments.
Thank you, Leader, and I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year and may you all get what you deserve. Thank you. At the meeting of the 3rd of December, the Adult Care and Public Health Scrutiny Committee considered the report on the Adult Social Care Strategy and agreed to support the recommendations. We welcomed the work that has been done to make the strategy clearer and more streamlined, improving the accessibility, where we was also reassured that the impact of the strategy will be measured through the new council plan and its performance indicators, along with the local government outcomes framework. This will allow councils to be properly held to account from the adult social care perspective. The committee was reassured that the TOM model, which is the target operation model, will be improved coordination across services and strengthen the focus on prevention on early interventions. We were told that leaders will work closely with staff to promote independence among those receiving support, and that the new Neighbourhood Health and Wellbeing Service will further support this approach. In relation to the ICB cluster, it was noted that Lincolnshire continues to have a strong and clear voice. The former interim chief executive of the NHS Lincolnshire ICB has been appointed as Director of Strategy and Customer Engagement for the cluster, and a number of the cluster's non-executives have also continued from NHS Lincolnshire ICB. Alongside the Lincolnshire Health and Wellbeing Board remaining in place, this reinforces a clearer Lincolnshire approach within the cluster. Finally, the committee sought clarity on direct payments. While the proportion has dipped below the 42% target, officers reassured us that this figure remains among the highest in the country. Officers also explained that the target is intended to remain within this range rather than simply increase in numbers, as some people are unable to manage direct payments independently. Plans to carry out reviews and audits over the next 6 to 12 months were outlined to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Brooks, and can you pass on my gratitude to the committee for the work and the diligence that they put into this. I now move on to any questions from the executive. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to commend Councillor Clegg, Martin and the team on an ambitious strategy that highly focuses on prevention and empowering people to live independently and therefore improving their health and well-being wherever possible. I also wanted to mention, following on from the section on page 249, which talks about our unpaid carers and just how vital they are in our county. Their contribution is, unwavered, and the significant care and support that they provide to their loved ones really is amazing, and we would be very stuck without them. So I just wanted to mention them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Councillor Clegg.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Oliver, for those kind remarks. You've cut what I was about to say by half, but that's fine. That'll be to everybody's benefit. As Martin Samuels has said, this marks quite a pivotal point. We haven't had adult social care strategy for some time. In a relatively short period of a matter of months, we've managed to achieve this, or hopefully we will do if members vote today for it. There have been a lot of changes going on this last year, not least the introduction of the National 10-Year Health Plan. Reference has been made to the Lincolnshire Integrated Care Board and its clustering with some of our neighbours, so all of that's been going on. And again, as Martin Samuels, you've mentioned, we've listened and consulted widely, and we've transformed what was a good, albeit very long and comprehensive document into a, no discredit to that and the people that produced that, but into a more concise, aspirational and accessible strategy document. It retains all the core principles, and as Councillor Oliver has already said, such things as independent living, a strength-based approach, prevention and co-production. And it also, of course, directly supports the efficiencies that have been highlighted in the budget item covered earlier today. So I would, just to conclude by, first of all, giving thanks to the chairman of the Adult Care and Public Health Scrutiny Committee and all your colleagues from all parties for their very valuable and informative contributions to the process. Thank you, Councillor Oliver, but indeed all fellow executive members for your contributions to the process and to where we are now. I'd also like to thank, and I am biased here, I admit, an outstanding adult care and community wellbeing team led by Martin Samuels. I'd also like to thank members of the Lincolnshire Integrated Care Board and the sort of the evolution into the clustered ICB now for their constructive comments that's been made. However, before moving the item, and on the basis of what Martin Samuels has just said about the design stage, and I would hope it does not need to come back before executive foot to ratify that. But as Martin's mentioned, there are a couple of typographical things that we would like to sort of obviously make sure don't manifest themselves in the final document. And therefore, if I may, Chairman, with your agreement, I'd like to just propose a minor amendment to the recommendations to give me the authority as the Executive Councillor for Adult Care and Health to make any minor textual changes during the final design stage, provided, of course, that they do not alter the strategic direction. So with your agreement to that, and I'll wait to hear back, but if members are minded to agree to that, then I'd propose...
I'll stop you talking for a sec.
Sorry.
I'll let you just let the monitoring software explain.
Yeah, just in terms of that that slight tweak to the recommendation, it should be expressed through the director in consultation with the relevant executive councillor. To add a slight
an additional paragraph to ensure that the Executive Director is authorised to make minor amendments in consultation with the Executive Councillor for Adults. That would comply with the 2000 Act in terms of the powers of the Executive to delegate to officers in consultation with members.
We'll vote on that then.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. And therefore, with that point of clarification, I move that we approve the adult social care strategy as recommended on page 215 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clegg, and thank you, Martin, for the way the report has been rewritten. It's something that I personally am very keen on across the county council work and up into the mayoralty as well. Stuff that we can simplify, make a little bit easier to read, and yet still be concise and accurate, I think is very good for the residents of Lincolnshire especially. So, Councillor Oliver.
Just to say that I'm happy to second that movement by Councillor Clegg.
Okay, all those in favour of that amendment then? Recommendation, however Will wants to call it. That is unanimous. All right, thank you very much, everybody. It's a bit longer-winded one today, but there's some really important stuff gone through that executive meeting. So thank you for your time and your patience, and have a very good afternoon. Thank you.